Hi, and welcome to part 12 of my Python programming beginner tutorial series. In the last few videos, we've gone over all the different types of collection data types in Python. So today we're going to be looking at how to loop through those different data types. Since the loops used to go through, each one is very, very similar. And this will also cover the last type of loop that I had mentioned in the loop video for the for loops. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at that. So firstly, we're just going to create all four of our data types for the collection data types, just to give one last little refresher of how we create those. So first off, we have a list here. So we're just going to name it list one. And again, this is going to be with square brackets. We're just going to make these lists really simple today. So we're just going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we also have the tuples, which we're just going to name tuple 1. And that's with round brackets or parentheses. So that we're just going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. And then we also have sets, which we are going to name set 1 for our examples. And this is with the curly brackets. And this again, we're just going to set it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we also have dictionaries, which in this case, we are just going to name it dict1, which is going to be just standing for dictionary 1. And we are going to, again, initialize that with curly brackets. But dictionaries, as we saw, is key value pairs. So this one's going to look slightly different than the other ones. We're not going to be able to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this case, we're going to use a very similar example to our dictionary video, which is going to be kind of like an RPG enemy object. Similarly, just hold all the values of our enemy here. So we have a name, we will have a level here, and we're going to set him to level 12 here. And we're going to give him a health, and we're going to set that to 100. And we're also going to have drops, which this we're going to be setting that to a list here. We're just going to set that to coins, sword, and shield. We're just going to add the comma here. All right, so we have all four of our collection data types here. So now we're going to show you how to loop through these. So we're going to start off in order. So I'm going to do lists first, tuples, sets, and then dictionaries. The only one that's somewhat different is going to be dictionary, and that's strictly because it has a key value pair. So firstly, we are going to start off with a for loop here. So we're going to have for, and then we're going to have x in a list 1, and then we're going to have our colon here, and then we're going to hit enter, which we should have indentation here of 4 spaces or a tab. 4 spaces because my Visual Studio Code is set to 4 spaces for a tab, but you could just use a tab. And then in here, we are going to do the print x, and this should give us all the items in our list, each on their own line. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can easily tell here what's going on. So for the tuple, actually, we're going to change it to 12, 21, 33, 44, and 55, just so we have a little bit of differences, actually, just to keep it standardized here. We're just going to do 11, 22, 33, 44, and 55, just so you guys could see the difference here. So we're going to have tuple 1. So as we can see here, the code stayed exactly the same for looping through it. We just changed list 1 to tuple 1. And we have our tuple that prints off, again, each item in its own line. So basically, a little explanation before I move on to sets and dictionaries. This basically is our for loop. Again, just like the other for loops, X is basically a variable holder for the variable at the index position that you will be at inside of this data collection. And by default, this will automatically increment by 1. It'll do each item in that data collection. So X is basically, we'll start at 0, and then just keep going, incrementing the index value for said data collection. It's kind of how it works in the back end, and then we go ahead and we print off that item. You could simply write this for loop, of course, in a slightly different way. So if we did 4x in range, which we've seen before as well, and we did tuple1 dot, I want to say it's actually going to be len tuple1, and then we could do print tuple and then x. I want to say that that will give us the exact same answer as well. Oops, and we need to reference tuple1. So there we go. So we actually do get the same result here. So we have 11 through 55, and then again 11 through 55. If we just remove this for now, we will see that we get 11 through 55. So these two are identical. It's just this is definitely going to be a lot shorter to write and a lot simpler to write, but it really just does this in the back end, really. So I would always recommend, if you have a data collection, to just do the 4x or for item. You could simply use item here, and then you would just have to change this in the loop. This is simply a holder for what item that it's in. And then we can do the same thing with set1. So let's change tuple1 to set1. And we are going to see that we get, again, 1 through 5. Now, the only one that is different, so if we do this here now, if we do dict1 for the first dictionary here, we are going to see that we get only name, level, health, and drops. Now, these are the keys of our dictionary. So we can get the keys of our dictionary by doing this. Now, what if we wanted the keys and the values? Now, this won't work. What you could do to get the values is if we want to print it off on the same line here. So let's just do plus, and then we got quote space colon space quote. And then we're going to add our dict1 and then square notation item. So this will get the value of the um, key item in dictionary 1. So if we run this here, oops, I must have made a typo here. Of course, I believe I will not be able to do that. So if I do this here, because we have some integers in our dictionary, so we're going to have to cast those to a string. So here we are. So here we actually do end up having our key and value on the same line here. You could print them off in a different line if you just did a print dict1 item. In the line underneath, you would get one line with the key, one line with the value, or you could do this concatenation and get it all on one line. Just be mindful of, if you have any type of other data types other than strings in your dictionary, you will have to cast them to a string to output them, as we saw, because we did get that error earlier, because we have some numbers like 12 and 100, and you can't simply add those to a string. You have to cast those to a string in Python. So there we have how to loop through all the different types of data collections in Python. Now, once you can loop through these, you could do tons of different actions on the different items, on the different key value pairs. If you needed to go through a list or a set and then do something for each item, this is how you would do it. So in the next videos, we will be going over some string manipulations, and then we're going to start looking at building out functions in Python. So that's where things get really interesting because we'll be able to, instead of copy pasting code into multiple spots in our program or our script, we'll be able to create a function, and then we can just call that function to do a block of code over and over again. So be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to get notified when those videos come out, and I will see you on the next video.